the topic today is salary versus entrepreneurship. And this topic will help somebody. It would bless somebody. It will shape somebody's understanding of the future. Because I think sometimes we have this confusion every time we talk about salary, entrepreneurship. We have that confusion. So some people will say, hey, everybody has to be an entrepreneur. And that's what I want to address this evening. Do we all have to be an entrepreneur, or can we succeed remaining as salaried workers? So let's go straight to what I have this evening before you. Sometimes the mindset that we have is that entrepreneurs mint money. So when you see the people that are the billionaires, the Elon Musk of this world, the Jeff Bezos of this world, the Bill Gates of this world, come down to our own parts of the world, the Dangotes of this world, the Tonellumelus of the world, the Jimovias of this world. The mindset is that entrepreneurs, they just pluck money. And you cannot achieve financial freedom except you have your own conglomerate or your own business and all that. And that's one mindset. And so you now see some people downplay the place of salary. They talk about salary is the money they pay you to keep you in bondage. Salary is the money they pay you to help you increase their work. They say all sorts about salary and make people feel that working for an organization is a bad thing. And so we'll try and answer this question to entrepreneurs. Sorry. Somebody on? To entrepreneurs mint money. Can you people still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My voice is loud and clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So let's go straight. So I think first and foremost is let's put entrepreneurship in context. Even though for every one Tonelumelu you see, a Jimovia you see, a Dangote you see, a Jeff Bezos that you see, there are hundreds of people that you do not see. So this is a study that I saw, you understand, just today, and this is as at 2023, the startup failure rate statistics. Now, 10% of all startups will fail within the first year. And when we talk about failure, it means that they will collapse. All their investment, all their resources. So they will start with a plus and end with a minus. That's what failure is. They've invested time, they've invested resources, they've invested everything. 10% of all startup will fail in the first year. By the time you even get to the second year, is almost 25%. By the time you get to the fifth year, we are looking at 50%. And by the 10th year, we are looking at somewhere at almost at 70%. 15 years, 75% of all entrepreneurship startup will fail. I want you to think about that 10 years of investment of trying to make things work and the rest. And guess what? It's 10 years of wasted. The person has wasted his time, has wasted his energy, has wasted resources, has wasted everything in 10 years. Why am I starting with this? Somebody will say, is this not a depressing statistics? It's good for you to know what you are up against. Faith doesn't deny reality. Faith simply uses something greater, a greater truth revelation to change reality. That's what faith doesn't deny it. So you need to know what you are up against before you enter it. So would everybody have that resilience, stomach, energy, perseverance to break through this? Not everybody. So this is telling us that not everybody will be a classic entrepreneur, because 10% of all will fail. Yes, when some people say there's a casting down, for us there's a lifting us. I know all that. But let's face the fact that entrepreneurship is not as easy as people think. There are certain conditions that makes entrepreneurship successful, but just know that in 5 years, and 5 years, you have almost 50% failure. Now, 50% failure are people, in this case, maybe they've closed their business. There are other people that are also struggling. They have not failed, they've not closed, they've not shut down, but they are struggling to make ends meet. They are struggling to pay the rent, pay their salaries, pay so many stuff. They're struggling to make ends meet. Such people would have been better off as salaried workers rather than going through the route of entrepreneurship. So this is the first point I want you to understand here. The entrepreneurship is challenging. Is it possible? Yes, but it is challenging, so that we know exactly what we're getting into when we decide to say we want to go into entrepreneurship. Having said this, I go back again to the 4 P's I taught last week. The money is in problems, in products, in people, and in places. The starting point of every form of wealth creation is that problem solving. And that the beauty of problem solving here is that you don't need to take some of the risks. You can just tell somebody, I can actually solve this particular problem for you. And you work for either an individual or you work for an organization, and they pay you for the problems that you solve. So that problem solving is most times the starting point of wealth creation and is the entrance into it. So salary, for example, is the starting point. An organization has a problem. They need an accountant, or they need more doctors, or they need more engineers or something. They have a problem. They look for somebody. Oh, your taps are not working. You look for somebody that is a plumber, for the person to come and work. Problem solving is the starting point. Now, the question here is, should I start the problem solving and start my own business? Or can I work for somebody who is doing that thing and the person takes some of the risks and pays me? So let me say this to you. The starting point, everybody here is being a professional or an employee. It gets to a particular point where you say to yourself, I think I can package my skills, my ability, or whatever, my talent into a product and start up my own business to sell. So whether you go into entrepreneurship or you remain as an employee, you must be sure that whatever you're doing is solving problems. So in packaging your talent, your gift, your resources into a product and taking that the bull by the horn and starting on your own is when you now talk about that entrepreneurship path. And in entrepreneurship, there are a lot of challenges. For example, you need to get people, you need to learn how to manage people, you need to deal with different type of clients. That's the people part. So as I package it into product, I need to find the people that would buy the product. I need to find where those people are. Last week I said that the internet has made the place a bit redundant. So you can sit in the comfort of your home and have a client in Switzerland or a client in Kenya because of the internet. So if you remove that place part, then the 3 P's, the problem solving, the product, and the people part, we cannot remove it. But we all start with the problem solving part. So what I want to do here, because this is a biblical perspective, not just secular, I want to show you 2 employees in the Bible. And most of you will not have thought about them as employees, but they're actually employees. And from there, we can draw certain lessons. So we start from the problem-solving part, being an employee, finding problems in an organization to solve. The first employee that the Bible tells us, classical, that we can learn from, whose experience ended in, it's quite frustrating, is the person called Jacob. Jacob worked for Laban. Scripture makes us understand that 10 times his wages was changed. So he worked for Laban, he slaved himself. He said, in the night I couldn't sleep, in the day I couldn't sleep, because every time an animal comes, a predator comes and takes one of the sheep, I have to bear the loss of it. So Jacob was working for Laban, but was under a lot of bondage. And almost after 20 years of working for Laban, he has nothing to show for it. Now, a lot of people take that picture and paint it as that's what happened in working for people, that 20 years you might not have anything to show for it. It's one picture of working for an organization. There's another picture that I'll come to, but let's agree on that picture. Let me even ask you, was Jacob Laban's employee? Let me ask you.
Yes.
He was working for Laban. He was Laban's employee. He had a salary. That's 10 times you changed my wages. That's salary. So he was on a salary, but his wages were changed 10 times. That's one picture. And so if you work for the kind of Laban kind of people, you will work for 20 years and you will have nothing to show for it. 20 years of hard work, 20 years of laboring, 20 years of being under the heat and under the sun and under the rain, and there's nothing to show for it. You are just barely getting by, providing the everyday meal, but there's really nothing to fall back on in the days of emergency or in the times of emergency. That's one picture of an employee. The second picture that a lot of people might not have considered is the picture of somebody whose experience ended in fulfillment, whose experience was wonderful, was amazing, was great, was fantastic. So let me ask you, who do you think will fall in this picture in the Old Testament?
Joseph.
Fantastic. Joseph was an employee. Yes, he worked for Potiphar's house and the rest, but he became the employee of Pharaoh. He was Pharaoh's employee, but Joseph worked at a very high position. So Joseph was prime minister. So Joseph can be seen as the CEO of an organization. Joseph can be seen as maybe an executive director. Joseph worked, and Joseph's experience was not the same as Laban's experience. And I need you to understand this in context and in picture. There were businessmen in Egypt that did not have the kind of influence that Joseph had. Joseph had abundance. Remember, think about it. Put the picture very well so that you can see this. When Joseph's brother came, they came during the time of famine when people were coming to Pharaoh, and he says, go to Joseph. Joseph ordered his staff, his servant. He said, please kill an animal. I'm going to have lunch. So although there was famine in the land, Joseph had the luxury of prosperity because he was working in Pharaoh's palace. Both of them were employees, but the experience was not the same. So the problem here is not about being an employee. Are you people following me this evening?
Yes, sir.
So let me show you. If the problem is if you agree that Joseph is an employee and Jacob is an employee, if the problem is not about being an employee, what do you think the problem is?
Employer. Mindset.
Somebody say mindset. What do you mean by mindset? I think in this case, it's not about, I don't know what you mean by mindset. Jacob was hardworking. It's not about being hardworking in the case. It's about who you work for. It's about who you work for and the kind of organization that you work for. Can I say this to you? There are some people working in some organizations that are doing far, far, far better than people working for themselves as employees. Far, far, far better. I had somebody who many years ago was in a church for a while, and then you understand he moved to Port Harcourt and all that. And guess what? He got a job in a multinational organization. He told me that after 3 years, the organization started giving people early retirement. And he says that if he was going to take his early retirement, just after 3 years of working, the minimum he would get is 30 million. 3 years after. He said there are people whose early retirement packages are in hundreds of millions. Now, that man working in that organization is better than a lot of entrepreneurs who cannot boast of a 30 million savings investment or even 100 million investment. So every time when you hear people say salary cannot be, you cannot become rich through salary, sometimes in my mind, I just smile and I say to myself, it depends on the kind of organization that you are working for. There are people whose salary are in hundreds of millions. The organization is more important. So I wrote here 3 things. That the problem is not salary of being an employee. The problem is the type of job you do, the type of boss organization you work for, and your level in that organization. I could use Joseph and Jacob, and we could spend time on it. Jacob was working for a one man. Now, was Pharaoh really a one man? Pharaoh was more than a one man. Pharaoh was an institution, so to speak. There were people in his palace, a lot of people working different roles. And Joseph was there. So you could see, and Egypt was like the first civilization in quote, or the main civilization that those days. So Jacob Joseph was working in what we'll call a multinational today, or a world-class organization today, while Jacob was working in a sole proprietorship. So the type of organization, your level in that organization, there are people who, as the CEO of Google, earns millions of dollars just as the CEO of Google, which some entrepreneurs will not get. And if the man decides to retire, he can retire with a package of $200 million as the CEO. Would you say to that person that salary is bondage? No, it's not. Salary is not bondage. It depends on the type of job. It depends on the type of boss or organization, and the level in that organization. What is the lesson here? So the lesson here is that there are certain organizations and certain jobs you do and certain bosses you work for that you can never experience financial freedom. While there are some other types of job and other types of organization that you work for, and through that salary pathway, you can actually experience financial freedom. So that's for me my biggest takeaway here. Both of them were employees, but the experience with Joseph had the luxury of telling his brothers and his father and said, please, all of you should come here. Joseph was like a king. All of you, live wherever you are, come to me, and I will take care of you for the remaining 5 years of famine from his portion that was due him. Joseph was not just comfortable. Joseph lived large, even as an employee of Pharaoh. I hope you see that salary is not a crime. It's simply a function of where. And my wife says where and who, and I like that. Where you are working and who you are working for, and the kind of job you are doing, and the level. Joseph was comfortable. Jacob was frustrated. Jacob could not provide for his family. They are both confident children of God, the person you work for. I don't know, am I communicating?
Yes, you are, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes it will be better for you to just sit down in a Pharaoh's cabinet, because there's famine coming. Oh, it's not the time for you to say you want to go and start planting. Stay in that position and be comfortable. And you have enough money to take care of your children. And he says, bring both your young ones. I will take care of you. Joseph was comfortable. It was salary that he was using, but it was salary that had bonuses, perks, advantages. So I say here, there are like two things I want to say here about this. That number one here, two other points with this, that sometimes it is better to work for a stranger than to work for a brother or an in-law. Laban was an in-law, was the mother's elder brother. Laban was an in-law. But Laban maltreated Jacob. Pharaoh was, in quote, an unbeliever. But Pharaoh knew certain principles. That sometimes you need to ask yourself, it's not about whether this person is my brother, my pastor. You understand? You need to ask, will this person be kind and fair to you for the contributions that you make? So sometimes it's better for you to take your skills and look for your Pharaoh, somebody who will value the things that you have, who will promote you to certain levels and give you the kind of comfort that you want. That's the first thing I want to say here. And number two, it's better to be an employee in a world-class organization than to be a struggling entrepreneur. There's no advantage saying I'm an entrepreneur, I work for myself. You work for yourself and you cannot pay the bills. That's not just working for yourself. That's being stupid. So sometimes it's better for you to say, hey, I want to work on a world-class organization and rise through the ladder. Then you can decide tomorrow to say, okay, I think I'm comfortable. I've reached the top. I need to think of starting my own business at that particular time. So sometimes being an employee is better than being an entrepreneur. I don't want you to live with this mindset that we all must be entrepreneurs. If 50% will fail within 5 years, it's better for you to work in an organization where in that 5 years, so imagine if you got a job in that world-class organization, 5 years down the line, after you've earned so much, they ask you to leave. they're giving you almost 75 million to start. Then you can use that 75 million and decide to start whatever you want to do. Not every one of us will be an entrepreneur. First thing I want to say. Number two is that salary is not a crime. The question is who you are working for, where you're working, and what you're doing in that particular organization. As I bring this to a close, I want to go back again. I want to go back again to Laban and Jacob and bring this. So I said to you, two things that you need to consider. Number one is whether you want to be an entrepreneur or you are working in a salaried kind of an employee. The first thing you need to ask yourself is, what are my growth prospects? So simple way to ask yourself here is, if I stay here for another 10 years, can I plot the trajectory and where I'm likely to get to? And if the growth prospects are next to nothing, then you need to start plotting your exit. If you know that no matter how much you do it, you will remain a foreman, then you need to decide, hey, is that what I want to do 10, 15? So growth prospect is looking at the future. And the second thing is what is their package? How generous is their package? Does it allow me, like the case of Joseph, to have enough to take care of not just my family, my extended family, and the people that depend on me? That's Joseph. Like the case of Jacob, it's not even enough to feed my family. And Jacob said, even if I remain here, there's no good prospect. Your father will not change. And he spoke to the wives. I said, see, your father, you know what your father has done, and I need to take care of my family. And they agreed to say, let's try and live. Two questions you need to ask yourself is your good prospect and your generous package. And if you ask yourself these two questions, you now begin to ask yourself, should I leave this and start a business that has 90% or 50% chance of failing? You now need to ask this. And there are times when you get to that point, you say, okay, I think I need to follow this. And maybe next week we'll talk when you need to leave. Because in my book, the Success at Work, I talked about when it's time to leave an organization. And I give like 7 principles of when it's time to leave. Maybe when the talk of destiny calls, you are not growing, the organization doesn't value your skills, and the culture is not good, you understand? So there's so many times to leave. But just ask yourself 2 questions. Are there growth prospects for my career and the rest? And number 2, is there a generous package? So if you work in an organization where a cleaner can become the CEO, you know there is prospect. But if you work in an organization where it's just by the color of your skin, you cannot get to the top, then you need to begin to ask yourself, God, give me wisdom. One thing I learned from the Laban story, even though they changed his wages 10 times, Jacob did not just leave. I think God directed him. It's time for you to go back home. And that was when Jacob. So even though you work in an organization and you feel that this is not the place for me to be, don't just leave. Ask God for the right timing to leave. And in leaving, ask God for an exit strategy. So for God gave Jacob an exit strategy, and that exit strategy made him create wealth, and he left in abundance. So don't just leave because when you join there, you feel that this is not the place. Ask God for an exit strategy and trust God for the right time. So let me bring this to a close. It's 9:25. Now, what I want to say here is that although Joseph's example is amazing, the problem in this part of the world, let me say this, I think there are more Labans than there are Pharaohs. Do you agree? Yes or no?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There are more Labans than there are Pharaohs. There are more people who want you to work for them, and they are not interested in your welfare. They're just interested they're like leeches. They want to suck you dry, but not give you anything back in return. So just looking at this, we cannot put a percentage to it. We might say 80-20. There are more 80% Labans, people who want to change your wages, and you know what Jacob said to Laban? What you had was small when I joined, but look at how it has increased. So when you see an organization growing and you are not growing with that organization, you know that the spirit of Laban is at work. He said, what you had was small. It's a different case when the organization, we're all struggling, and you can see that. But when you see that the CEO is buying houses, is changing cars and the rest, and the people working for them, they are content to pay them 30, 20, you understand, 10,000 and the rest, then you know that, wow, is this the Pharaoh kind of mentality or spirit, or the Laban? I'm using Pharaoh in this context of Joseph and Jacob. And so for me, if there are a lot of Labans who will want to change our wages, who will want to keep us in bondage, the spirit of Laban is that spirit that wants you to remain an employee for life, dependent on them, where they will not even give you that opportunity for you to make money. So you need to keep coming, you need to keep coming, because you know that even if you want to decide to leave, how would you pay the bill, the next rent and the rest? As long as they keep you in bondage, you will be dependent on them. So what do we do? Laban and Jacob gives us an example in Genesis 27. At that particular time, it's time for you to begin to think of entrepreneurship, because in this particular case, what is the worst that can happen? Right now, you're even struggling to pay the bill. So you cannot even go through the month without you being in debt and the rest. And your organization, there's no hope. And this was what Jacob at that particular time went to Laban and said, it's time for me to leave. Look at verse 28 of Genesis 30. He said, name your wages and I will give it to you. Look, this is the same man that has changed his wages 10 times. He said, you know what, how I've served you. So it's not a question of my service. It's not a question of being diligent, being hardworking, and your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was little, and it has increased to a great amount. He said, the Lord has blessed you since my coming. You can see the blessing and the rest. He said, and now when shall I also provide for my own house? I can see abundance. Your children are made up, but my children cannot even feed. When shall I also provide for my own house? He now says in verse 30, Laban agreed. He says, what shall I give you? He says, I don't want you to give me anything. I like this. I don't want you to give me anything, because 10 times you have changed my wages. What is the basis of this? Is somebody agreeing that it's time for me to leave and start my own, and they're saying, okay, so what do you want so that we can increase your salary? But 10 times you have changed my salary. And he says, no, I don't want to give you any, don't give me anything. And you know what happened? He says, take all the animals that are spotted and speckled and the rest, remove them, give me the plain animals. And if they give birth, and they give birth to speckled and spotted animals, you know that I cheated, and you know that is my portion. And the guy agreed and said, okay, because he thought that was going to be another way of keeping Jacob in bondage. Little did he know that God had already given Jacob an idea. And this is, see, there are so many lessons we can preach from that particular instance. You know, some of us will just be in our, I don't want to call it stupidity. God has given you an idea for your financial freedom. This is somebody who has cheated you 10 times. Some of us would have still given that idea to Laban and hoping that Laban would give us from it. Jacob did not. I don't want to say something here so that you will not take it somehow. I say, why is pastor saying this? But you see, we are talking about, this is classic. Jacob says, don't give me anything. Let's separate these animals. Take this part. Remove from me all the speckled and spotted and the rest. Remove it completely, and all those ones. He says, then later, if any child that comes out is spotted and speckled, they will be my wages. And Laban jumped at it. He did not share the idea that God gave him for free. He used that idea to create wealth. It's not every idea that God gives you that you will give your Labans. If the man has the Pharaoh's kind of spirit, the first time I gave you, you rewarded me, I will give you a second time. But if the first time I gave you, your things are increasing, you're not rewarding me, it will be foolish for you to still keep giving. Use that idea to create wealth. Let me say this. This might not be the right way to put it, but it's the context. In entrepreneurship, you need to learn also to protect your stuff, your idea. This is about your patent. You need to put it another word. You need to learn to be innocently selfish. Let me use that word. You know what I mean? Innocently selfish. Jacob did not share the idea out. Did not give it out for free. Jacob protected it and says to Laban, now, so what did Jacob do? He moved from salary to partnership. He moved from salary to partnership. This is what he moved from. Don't pay me anything, but give me a commission of whatever happens. And that commission can be 50-50, can be 30-70, can be 80-20. I don't know. Am I coming? Oh, wow, my time is fast. Am I communicating?
Yes, please. Your time is not spent.
Yes, sir.
Very well, Max. Very well.
See, because you see, God gives us ideas, especially somebody who has been working under Laban, and God has given you an idea to free you from financial bondage. Don't be stupid enough to give it to your Laban for free. Your Laban will take your idea, prosper with your idea, and still keep you in bondage. Now, I'm saying this here is that each one of us needs to also think, if you're doing well in your organization, fine, there's no problem. If you're working for a Pharaoh there, but you need to also think of, how can I earn a commission, a bonus? When I mean commission, not illegal, legal, a bonus. You understand? A bonus, a commission. So in some organizations, they earn commissions. For every business you bring, you earn a commission. So if you bring $1 billion and maybe the commission is 10%, that's 100 million. It depends on the commission. Some people is 1% and the rest. And this was what Jacob said. Working for Laban and depending on salary is a sure pathway to poverty. You need to think of, God, give me an idea. And when he gives you an idea, please don't give it for free. Look for something that gives you that platform. And there's so many things in my spirit just looking at this. Now, it was from that same business that God gave him an idea. So where he was working, God gave him an idea. In the same place where you're working, it's not an idea to cut deals. No. I had a friend who, when I was in banking, so let me say this example and I'll just bring this to a close. God can give you an idea in the same business where you're working. This guy was a senior manager when I was a manager. And when I went to London Business School and came back, the guy called me and said to me, Maxwell, I want you to come and help my company do some restructuring and the rest. And I said, okay, we met at Golden Tulip in near Festac Extension. And the guy said to me, Maxwell, I have 350 trucks. And I screamed, 350 trucks. In fact, no, he said, no, he said, right now, I've even ordered 100 trucks. It's coming from Mercedes-Benz. I went to Mercedes-Benz. I ordered 100 truck heads. And when I ordered the 100 truck extra, I said to them to give me their latest, highest class G-Wagon. That by the end of this year, my truck will get to like 550. And I shouted and I screamed. And I asked him, how did it happen? You know, I've said so many times to you, when somebody says it's the doing of the Lord, ask the person, how did the Lord do it? What the Lord has done, I can't change it, but I can learn from how he did it. And the guy said, remember that customer? I said, yes, I remember the customer. When you used to come, we'll package some credits together and the rest. I'll go present it. He said, as I was putting the packages together, I saw a gap. I said, wow. And in that gap that I saw, I decided to buy one truck head and I put the truck head in the market. God gave him an idea. Some of us would have called the same customer in quote, sold the same idea and would have remained in poverty. God gave him an idea and the guy used that idea. Said, let me even experiment with this with a truck. And that one truck went to 2, from 2 to 5, from 5 to 350. And today it's almost 600 trucks. God gave him an idea in the same business where he is working. Father, we thank you for mercy. I need to stop here so that God gave him an idea. So I said here, if your current salary cannot give you the quality of life you think you deserve, or help you create the quality of life for your family, or you cannot maintain your current quality of life without your job. So if you 6 months down the line, you lose the job, then you need to think of an extra source of income. And that might be just the pathway for entrepreneurship. Lord, we thank you for mercy. We thank you for grace. We bless you tonight. We ask that you help us by your spirit. Help us apply the concepts. I don't know how God has spoken to you. Somebody, maybe you are working for a Laban, you need an escape route, or maybe you're working for your Pharaoh, you understand. Some of us, we might even be an entrepreneur, but maybe you need to go back and get a job. I don't know, you understand. Or you're working, I don't know how God has spoken to you. If God has